Something I see really often is that as people start to grow and understand themselves more clearly, there can also be this quiet fear that comes with it. That if things really change, then everything might have to change. Relationships, work, the structure of their life. And that can feel like a lot. In the last few videos, we've been talking about how growth actually happens, how the nervous system expands, what internal belonging looks like, and what it means to start to lead yourself. Naturally, that leads to a really important question. What happens to your life when you start outgrowing the identity that you've been living in? A lot of people assume there are only two options: either stay the same or burn everything down. Keep the job or quit. Stay in the relationship or leave. Keep being who you've been or become someone completely different. And something I've noticed is that this all or nothing thinking is often coming from parts of us that are trying to create certainty because uncertainty can feel really unsafe. But growth doesn't usually work like that. And it doesn't have to. A lot of identity expansion doesn't start with external change. It starts with internal shifts, subtle ones. How someone speaks to themselves, what they tolerate and what they don't, where they stay quiet and where they begin to be a little bit more honest. And over time, those internal shifts begin to change how life feels. And that's before anything on the outside necessarily looks different. Something I believe and something I see reflected in this work is that a lot of this process isn't about becoming someone new. It's about unlearning what was never actually you to begin with. And if you think about it, people don't come into the world disconnected from themselves. As children, we come into the world pretty clear about what we need, pretty clear about how we feel, and clear about what matters to us. Over time, that connection can start to get shaped or redirected, slowly lost, not because there's something wrong with them, but because of what environment they had to adapt to. So, a lot of this work is less about becoming and more about remembering. And what that often looks like is someone beginning to relate to their existing life differently before making any changes to it. It might look like setting a boundary without immediately leaving the relationship, speaking up without completely changing environments, letting something feel misaligned without rushing to fix it overnight. Because something I see often is that when people start to feel that misalignment, there can be this sense of urgency, like, I need to figure this all out right now. But urgency and clarity aren't the same thing. Sometimes urgency is just a very convincing part saying, we should probably solve our entire life this week. And that part tends to have a timeline that the rest of the system does not agree with. This is where self-led energy becomes really important because there can be parts that want to leave, fix, escape, or completely reinvent things overnight. And self-led energy is what allows someone to stay connected to those parts without letting them take over the entire direction of their life. To move forward without moving from panic. Something I see over time is that when people do begin to shift internally, their life does start to change. But it tends to happen in a way that's more gradual, more grounded, and actually more sustainable. Not because they forced it, but because what no longer fits naturally starts to fall away. And what does fit also becomes a lot more clear. So if there's a sense right now of outgrowing something or feeling like identity no longer fully fits, that doesn't automatically mean that everything has to change all at once. It might just mean something is shifting internally, and that shift may need a little space to unfold. I'd be really curious, are you noticing any of this happening in your own life? And please feel free to share in the comments if so. And wherever this finds you, I'm really glad that you're here. Take what fits, leave the rest, and take care of yourself this week. I'll see you in the next one.